higher. Okay, now this one is what I consider a special video, man. We're gonna be speaking on the shoulder devils and the shoulder angel that, we see in the cartoons. We see in the TV shows, we see in the videos, just on the spiritual meaning of what that really is. Now, if you can see, every time that you see these characters with these angels and the devil on their shoulder, it's always in the form of that character. Every time. Always in the form of that character. Always in the form of the character. Every time. It's like using jumper cables. You need both negative and positive. So, they tell us God is something outside of you, devil is something outside of you, fighting, two forces fighting. That's duality. That's the trick to keep you in the cycle of duality. Every time it's in the form of the character. This is your consciousness. This is your ego. Higher self, lower self. But what we got to understand is this one whole. The Creator don't work in halves. Everything is a whole. Everything is in a whole. Because everything comes from one source. So understanding the integration, killing the duality, killing the illusion that it's a duality. It's a separation from anything. You have to integrate those dark forces with the light forces. It's sort of like when you plant a seed. You plant it, you put it inside of the dirt, in the ground, in the darkness, and the sun shines on it. You have to integrate it. You got to work with both sides. You can't deny it. You can't say it's something outside of you, or you can't change it. So this is basically like, you being in the best relationship you ever been in, but not appreciating all of the older relationships that came prior. It's impossible. It's impossible. Or, you getting the career you always wanted, or, just something that you accomplished. There's no way that you can separate that. You like, some people might want to hate their old relationships, but that's carrying over into your new relationship. You know what I'm saying? You have to embrace it because that's you. Yeah, you might have hated what that person did to you, but that was you in that experience. That was your experience. So when you're cutting that person down, you're cutting that version of you down. That, you know what I'm saying? You in that space and time. You're cutting yourself down because you're connected to that experience. You can't disconnect yourself from that experience. It's a whole. So in order to move on, you have to embrace it. You have to love it. So when you look back, like, man, I appreciate all that I went through. I appreciate them. I wouldn't even have what I have now. I appreciate them long nights. When you finally get to that success point that you want to see. It's always the person. So, it's about integrating. Working with both. So this is about spiritual accountability. That's why a lot of people don't have no spiritual accountability. People that you see going through the same cycles over and over and over. Because they have a feeling that it's something outside of them. If you feel like it's out of your control, it's nothing that you can do about it. Nothing you will do about it. So it's all a figment of our imagination. If nobody ever told us what God or the devil was, there would be no separation. There would be nothing outside of you that you're talking about. You will feel connected to everything. But we pick and choose. And look at this, Donald's better self. Every time. His better self. That's like when they say, if you can't appreciate me at my worst, you don't appreciate me you don't need to see me at my best. You can't be with me at my best. It's connected to the old self, well, the worst self, whatever you want to call it. It's always the person. And it's nothing but the ego. It's the ego and the higher self. So and that's Beyonce on her Sasha Fierce album. The devil, dark energy with the light energy. It's the same thing. The ego is what you created. That image you created of you. That's what the ego is. This separate self that you done created, that's a part of everybody else. So you convince yourself that this ego has needs that are apart from everybody else. When everything that we do, everything you do affects everybody collectively, whether you're keeping that in mind or not. So this is what this represents, the duality. Everybody's feeding into a separate self, separate needs of the collective, the union, when everything we do sets off a ripple. So that's like the T.I. him now versus the old him. We couldn't have the T.I. without the T.I.P. It's one union. The creator doesn't make things in half. It's a whole. He couldn't be where he's at if he didn't go through these quote unquote mistakes or lessons. It's the duality. And we set ourselves up in our mind with these make-believe events. An example could be like somebody getting into an accident. Boom, they get into an accident. Man, that's the devil. Man, that's the devil. They crank their car to see if it'll start. Boom, their car start. Thank God. Thank God. 3 to 5 months later, car breakdown. Boom. Man, that's the devil. The devil working. Everything I mentioned was a part of one event. It was a part of the same accident. But we choose to split and divide certain scenarios because of how it feels to us. It might hurt us so much that we want to disconnect, but we can't, because we can't disconnect from ourselves. We have to embrace it. You have to embrace all of you. Every time. It's always in the form of the person. So it's duality. Everybody's feeding into a false self. We're all connected collectively, but we create an image in our minds that our needs are going to fulfill humanity, instead of thinking fulfilling humanity's needs are fulfilling your needs. But just something to think about. Can't save everybody.